Okay, Julio, you're live.
There's some sound, background sound. So we can go now?
You can go now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Today is the Finance Committee meeting for August 25th, 2020. The first order is to call to order. So do we have quorum? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The next is the approval of the minutes from the August 11th to 2020 finance meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second? We don't need a second. Okay.
No second, no.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays, the motion carried. Next, we have on the agenda the Finance Director report. Misty Dodge is not here today, so Pat, do you have anything to comment?
No report, unless you have any questions, I can forward those on to Misty.
Does anyone have a question for Misty?
I'm good. You dealt.
No. Okay, no questions. So next we are moving to the review of the bills. So the next I don't need a motion, I will get confused. No, isn't it? No. I need a detailed review of all checks for $10,000 and above dated August 1st to August 15, 2020, totaling $802,964.36. Any question?
Randy has a question.
Okay, Randy, yes.
And I'm not sure if you can answer it, Pat. If not, we'll take it to Misty. But the Madison Metro Sewage District, how often do we pay that? It's a second quarter, so that must be every quarter.
Yes,
Okay.
it's quarterly.
Quarterly. Okay. All right. It was just a significant number. I just wanted to, just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big number.
It certainly is. Okay. All right. Thank you. That was
Okay,
answered.
and do we pay that with utility charges, isn't it?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any other question? No? Okay, so next we move to the detailed review of all check number 12057121125 dated August 1st to August 15, 2020, totaling $891,830.51. Any question there? No? Okay. So then we move to the action item. I need a motion to approve resolution R-139-20, a resolution approving the proposal award for purchase of the Fish Hatchery Road construction pole and fixture.
Motion to approve?
Who second?
You don't need a second.
No? Okay. So Pat, can you tell us what it is?
Yeah, this is for the utility poles, not the utility, the light poles that are going up with the new Fish Hatchery Road project. The project came in over what was estimated due to the number of poles that were required, along with the acquisition of 8 spare poles. Those poles get hit, unfortunately, by vehicles. We like to have some in stock, so we're keeping 8 in stock. They also are doing some energy efficient lighting on these poles that'll save energy in the long run. So that added a little extra cost too. So that's where the cost overrun came in.
So
And
the original amount budgeted, how much was?
I don't have that in front of me.
So but the staff is recommending, because I am looking at the 3 quotes, and one is almost $400,000, one is $610,000, and the engineer estimates $291,000. So
Yeah.
So we are over like $100,000.
That's about right. Yeah.
And from where the money is going to come to cover this?
It would be the reserves and that we have set aside in that project, the contingency for Fish Hatchery Road, and we're still in really good shape when it comes to the contingency.
I have a quick question. Has Phil Groupie done any calculations about what the savings look like for the energy efficient light poles over the course, or is that like he's gonna, I can ask him too. I was just curious if there's.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from Phil. Obviously, we'd be doing LED, which is usually lasts about 8 times as long as the regular bulbs. So I would, just the manpower alone will be a huge savings. I don't know in terms of energy, but the
Yeah.
manpower is a huge savings.
Great.
I don't remember this, but why we didn't decide to go with solar poles? Because they are more expensive, isn't it?
We didn't go with solar poles.
Yeah,
Why didn't we?
yeah.
Um,
Do you
I'm not-
remember?
I don't remember. I do know that they have the ability to put those small solar panels on. I just don't know how reliable they are and what the energy efficiency is on those.
I wonder if the snow has an effect on that over the course of the winter too, because I have to imagine that
does.
creates power needs.
We have a question from, Bill is in chambers, Bill Bulkey.
Oh, okay.
I just
Okay,
didn't
Bill.
expect you to get through the first agenda item so fast. Yeah, we did not consider solar power. They would be more expensive in the upfront costs for the light fixtures, and this was a compromise in between doing the standard incandescent lights and the solar lights is to have the LED fixtures. The LED fixtures, they like Pat had mentioned, they can be dialed down with the voltage so that they don't have as high of an energy output when we don't need the lights as bright. But right now, we didn't have a calculation on the energy efficiency, but we're figuring, an additional 25% on top of what the fixtures are rated for. And I didn't have that cost broken out right now for the actual energy cost.
And these poles, how long they're gonna, what is the life, like 20 years, 25?
They're anodized aluminum poles, so they'll last a good 50 years, hopefully, without a lot of corrosion out there. They'll last more or longer than the steel poles that we have.
So how many years do you say, 50?
I would say
50?
40 to 50 years on a lifetime
okay.
for those poles.
Okay.
And I have one other quick question. Is it, I know that we had to opt out of the flag holders due to the cost, but I'm curious if that's something that can be added on later, just, considering that this is one of the entrances to Fitchburg. It could be nice to have that option in the future if we have it in the budget. So I'm curious if that's something that could be added later.
The pole, the flag fixtures would be affixed to the pole, so they'd have to be put in now. They couldn't be retrofitted in later. They might have one that you can band on. I'd have to check with the manufacturer, but the poles are rated for having the flags on them too.
Okay, so we'd have to do kind of a separate
Right.
deal, but it's possible in a different way.
Yes.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
So following that question, so we are not gonna be able to put the snowflake for winter and all of that?
No, we can put the snowflakes on. We can
Okay.
put the banners on.
Okay.
We just did there was an addition for the flagpole that you
Oh,
could
okay,
put on.
okay, fine.
Oh, got it. I didn't realize that we were still able to do those. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Good to hear that.
Any other question? Okay, so all those in favor of resolution R-139-20 say aye.
Aye.
Nays, the motion carried. Next, I need a motion to approve resolution R-153-20, authorizing a contract to update the police department policy manual.
Motion to approve?
Okay, so the chief is here, okay. So Chief Reckling is gonna give us an introduction about this.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you are all doing well, considering our current state and pandemic. So I can give obviously a little bit of background on this proposal to do a budget amendment that will allow us to engage in a contract with an outside vendor to update our policy manual. So we have, over the years, attempted on a few different occasions to conduct a cover-to-cover review and revision of our policy manual. And unfortunately, those attempts have all largely been unsuccessful to complete that cover-to-cover review that we had hoped to do, largely because of the finite personnel resources that we have and the significant time commitment that goes into such a project. Obviously, we have always prioritized those policies that are mandated by state law or are along best practices that have a significant impact on our operations and that our community would expect. So I can at least confidently say that those mandated policies are in a good spot, but there are others that when you look at the overall picture, our manual is probably average, and this would put us in an opportunity to get us clearly above average. We've been evaluating options in order to conduct this sort of level of review and revision for a few years now. We think that the best way to accomplish that and get it done is to have a contract with an outside vendor to do that. This is going to be our best approach. While it's not inexpensive, it's much more cost-effective than hiring and staffing a person within the police department to go through and do this and then continue to maintain it on a regular basis. So that is also one of the benefits of the outside vendor, is that they are going to be continuously reviewing state and federal law changes. They're going to be looking at case law rulings and other best practices in the policing profession and sharing those updates with us on a regular basis. So Lexipol is the vendor that we are recommending or requesting authorization to contract with for this important project. They have extensive experience in implementing projects such as ours. They have over 4,000 public safety projects in our nation, and also 140 or more than 140 in Wisconsin as well. So they certainly have an experience in and familiarity with Wisconsin-specific policy, Wisconsin-specific laws, and more culturally relevant experience with Wisconsin public safety agencies as well. So one of the other advantages we find, not only using an outside vendor, but an outside vendor with the experience of Lexipol, is that under our previous attempts, obviously it was just our own internal staff looking to update those policies and make revisions. And I think in particular, what we've learned recently is that perhaps a police department shouldn't be guiding its own policies, and we should be looking for outside perspectives. And I think by using an outside vendor, that is one additional perspective that we can bring in because of the experience that they have. They have legal experts, they have subject matter experts, and they have risk management experts on their team who will obviously be contributing to this work. That also would serve as an opportunity to look for opportunities for input from the community as well, and we can certainly have those conversations moving forward if you're able to approve this request. But ultimately, this guided implementation from Lexipol, we believe, is going to help us meet the timelines that are necessary to get this implemented in probably, in an ideal world, about a 12-month time frame. That's typically what they shoot for, and we'd like to commit to getting that done. They are the only vendor that we could find that offers a total solution that includes policy revision and development services, an electronic platform for us to put our policies on that allows our staff to access them anywhere they have an internet connection. We'll be able to distribute policies to staff electronically. The platform has a series of short answers or questions and answers to demonstrate for our staff that they have comprehended the policy that's been put out. And then obviously the ongoing updates are another component of this company. And then finally, what we also feel is an added benefit is that this company also provides regular training bulletins related to our department policies. So that will allow our staff the opportunity to continue to refresh their comprehension and applications of the policies that we have, instead of us distributing a policy and it could be something that we use very infrequently and we never visit it again until there's an issue, so to speak, whereas utilizing the services of this company, odds are we're going to see these policies much more regularly throughout the year and again keep people fresh with those. So in summary, and then I'll open it up to any questions that you may have, is we do feel that it's very important in the current situation with policing in particular, but just in general, to have a well-organized, well-thought-out, and easily accessible policy manual that reflects best practices and multiple perspectives, and not just an internal perspective here in the police department. We also believe that the ability to determine comprehension when a policy is originally issued, as well as the policy continues to live and breathe, is an important component of this that we're obviously missing right now. Using an outside vendor will allow for a reduction in the personnel resources necessary. It will lead to a faster implementation. And then the ongoing updates, I think, again, are also another critical component to this that we're currently missing. I also want to add that I believe that having an up-to-date policy manual, such as the one that we will hopefully have with this contract, really lays the foundation for future accreditation of our police department. I think that that's something that we also need to consider here in Fitchburg. It's been something that I talked about through the hiring process that I went through for this role. And I think now it's become more important than ever to really strongly consider accreditation for this agency. And then again, this policy manual update will serve as the foundation for that, and would be done with an eye towards future accreditation so that that would be built into the policies as we are making revisions to them. Obviously, an updated policy manual is supported by our city's insurance carrier. And again, this, I think, offers an opportunity to improve the level of trust and transparency we have in our community. So the bottom line is I think that this is an opportunity to improve your local police department, and I'm available for any questions here and hopefully have your support.
I'd like to jump in with a question, if that's okay.
Any question?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in with one.
Okay, go ahead.
Chad, thanks so much for the presentation. One of the things I liked about the presentation was the ability for the officers to access the policy very easily. And my understanding is that there even may be an app available for people to look at, and then like those ongoing trainings and quick assessments. I think that sounds like a really fantastic tool. I'm curious if you've had a chance to, in investigating the vendor, have you had a chance to take a look at that app and look at those trainings and see what you think about the effectiveness of those?
I haven't had a chance to see the app. Where we're at right now is we're hoping to obviously engage in that conversation, or engage in the conversation to secure a contract at this point in time. And I have talked to other police chiefs who have Lexipol services, and they have been happy with the features that they offer, and feel that there is value in those regular policy training bulletins. So, they typically are scenario-based, is what I'm told, which I think is helpful. I've seen feedback on those scenario-based training bulletins that sometimes officers feel as if that it had been written specifically for that agency, when in fact it may have been a bit more generalized, just because there are obviously some commonalities of what a police department in another part of our state or country could potentially face from a scenario perspective, and have some relevance here. So personally answer that question about the app. I have not seen it yet, so I can't answer that.
Sounds good.
Most of our staff is much more savvy than I and would be able to find it through the internet anyway if their smartphone's connected, so even if their app wasn't as functional.
Randy, do you have a question?
Well, I do not have a question, but I just really a comment or a statement, and the statement is that I'm definitely in support of what you've presented. I think having worked in a number of organizations, companies, a policy manual is so important. Some of the organizations I've been involved with, there's some average, as I think you mentioned, and there are some not so average. And if you've ever been in an environment where there is a not so average policy manual, you can get yourself into some deep trouble from a legal standpoint. And given the current environment, I don't think any of us want to go down that road. But I think the access to changes in law, case law, and especially best practices laid out, and somebody else that can keep this up to date, I think it's a win for the police department, which is a win for the city of Fitchburg and taxpayers. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of questions. So my first question is, can you name any other municipality in Dane County that is using this vendor?
No, I don't believe any other agency in Dane County is using this vendor currently. I am familiar with at least two of the agencies a little bit larger than Fitchburg, Beloit and Wausau, are using Lexipol for their services. I think where you find the value is typically in smaller to mid-sized agencies where you may not have the staff available to stay as well tuned to policy.
Okay, my other question is, I know that we usually send an RFP for expenditure more than $25,000 or $50,000, so we got only one vendor. Can you explain us why do you choose this vendor and why you didn't do an RFP?
Yes, that's a very good question, Julia, and I certainly can provide some insight into that. As I mentioned in the memo to council, and then also just briefly here during the initial presentation, is that we've done quite a bit of research in talking with other agencies as well as internet searches, and we can't find a vendor that offers such a package that Lexipol offers, and I think that that's evidenced by the fact that they have, over 4,000 public safety clients throughout the nation. And when you look at some of the other vendors, there are a couple of really good vendors that offer the training the platform itself, where you can put your policies, you can distribute them electronically, you can get that comprehension, and so forth. And in fact, it sounds as though Lexipol may ultimately partner with one of those companies to potentially improve the platform that they have. And that platform also, in particular from the company that I'm referencing that has an excellent platform, has that accreditation focus. And I think that that's also what Lexipol is looking at as well. But when you look at that total package, there isn't a vendor that we could find that will offer all of the services when you talk about policy review, revision, and development, when you talk about that electronic platform, when you talk about providing automatic ongoing updates based upon law changes and case law and best practices, and then the daily regular, I believe they're daily training bulletins, but I don't want to mislead anyone, so I want to use the term regular, but they do come quite frequently, as often as daily, I've been informed. So we just couldn't find all of those components from another vendor, and that's why we've gone this route, I think, because of the fact that where we currently sit as an organization, we needed a total package solution. And perhaps in the future, we will decide that, we'll take the policies that were revised and move them to a different platform potentially, but we still want to make sure that we have that ongoing update. So wherever the policies would be moved to, in the future, we'd want to make sure that that is an essential component of it. And again, we're not aware of anyone else that has that level of service. So that's why you're seeing a sole source request.
Okay.
If you are aware, if anyone else is aware, by all means, we can press pause on this and take a look at it. But I am not aware of any other options there.
Okay. Any other question? Because I have more questions, so I don't know.
I have one I wanted to jump in with. I actually had a conversation with one of the trustees in McFarland, and my understanding is that they actually used Lexapro to update their policy manual recently. So maybe that's something that you could look into. But when I had a conversation with her, one of the things she mentioned was that, so there's that ongoing cost, you said possibly around $17,000 a year starting in 2022.
Yep.
But one of the things you mentioned was because of the potential for this policy update to lead to accreditation, that can sometimes often reduces our insurance cost, which can offset the cost of that ongoing, a charge from Lexapro to update our manual regularly. Is that something you're familiar with, that you've talked to the vendor about? Can you speak to that?
Well, accreditation is something, not only would obviously an up-to-date manual be important for our insurance carrier from a risk management perspective, but accreditation is supported by both Lexapol and our insurance carrier. And it is possible that it could reduce the city's premium. Obviously, if they have an agency that has what they believe to be an up-to-date policy manual that reflects best practices, as well as has gone through the accreditation process. The accreditation process itself obviously can be time-consuming in and of itself. The cost of that isn't prohibitive, in my opinion. And it's my understanding, and I'd have to confirm this with our city's insurance carrier once we get to that point of accreditation, but I believe they either credit or will cover the full cost of that accreditation on an annual basis. The other option that is available is our city's insurance carrier does provide a small grant to their clients every year that could also be used for a portion of the cost.
One of my other questions, Chief, is that I have done some research about this vendor, and I found some mixed review. So I want to ask you, you have done research. I have a couple of concerns that I want to ask you about. I read that some of these the services that they provide, they are like a cookie cutter, So, and also I am very concerned about what are going to be the immigration policy, what is going to be the body camera procedures, what is going to be the training. Is the training is going to involve also having racial, some training on racial issues. And also the other thing that I read in several of the articles that I found that they don't do any public oversight or public outreach in this implementation. So, and I want to ask you is, this is something that I think is very important to have public outreach input. And I want to ask you how we are going to be sure that the values of the Fitchburg police are really, really, covered in this policy manual, and how, if council is this at the end of when this manual is done, if council is going to have final say or review it before final approve it to determine that we already is a manual that reflect our police department values, no a cookie cutter from other police department.
So that was a lot of questions in one question, or at least statements.
I'm
So
sorry, but I have to say it all the time.
I'll try to cover.
I want to have a feedback about if what is your position?
Yes, so I'll try to cover as many of those points as you brought up, and if I don't cover them all, by all means, please prod me a little bit. So Again, with anything, I think in this day and age, with the research that we can all do, it's very rare where you see 5 out of 5 stars on anything. And I'm not saying that to discredit the research or the information that you found, because I think that, a perfect solution is not going to exist. And I'm not expecting that this implementation will be perfect if we end up going down this road. That's just not a realistic goal for us to have. I think what we want to do is make sure that the process goes as smoothly as possible, and it does certainly reflect our values and philosophies as a police department and a community. And when you talk about the cookie cutter aspect of things, there are certainly going to be policies that are probably somewhat cookie cutter, because there are some state mandated policies that have to have certain elements to them. So for instance, a pursuit policy is going to have certain elements that are required by state law or through our training and standards at the Department of Justice, and the Lexipol policy will obviously be a cookie cutter from the respect of that it will at least contain those minimally required components to be statutorily compliant. That does not mean we don't have the ability to further customize that policy or any of the other policies that best reflect how we operate in Fitchburg and what our values and what our philosophies are. I don't see any reason that a policy revision is going to change how we approach immigration issues, for instance. We have viewed that as a federal government issue, not a local police issue, and therefore I don't see why that would change because we're revising the manual. Now, if this council wants to give a direction that that should change, then obviously my role is to take that direction. When you talk about body-worn camera policy, our body-worn camera policy is out on the web. It has been out on the web since we rolled out with body cameras in early 2018. That body-worn camera policy, much like others, has certain components that it needs to have. We were fortunate to receive a federal grant, which allowed us access to subject matter experts in policy development related specifically to body-worn cameras. And in fact, our policy had to be scored and meet a certain minimum threshold in order to get the grant funding. So those sorts of things I don't see changing because we're using a vendor, and I don't see them coming in and being demanding to state that your policy has to be like this. I don't know how they would have 4,000 clients if they basically gave a cookie cutter out to every single agency and said, all you have to do is put Fitchburg where there's a blank space. So again, I'm not suggesting that it will be a perfect process. And I think that it is important to find opportunities for community input in the process.
Yeah.
And I think once we are, if we're allowed to proceed, once we begin to meet with the company and identify our timelines in the process, I think that's when we look to find those opportunities to seek community involvement, and what does that community involvement and input look like? How do we collect it? So, does that answer the questions?
Yeah.
Did I miss any of them? I mean, I'm not suggesting that I may have, completely convinced you or satisfied all of your questions, but I want to make sure that I at least addressed all of them.
So how long is going to be this, how long is going to take them to develop this manual?
We're estimating it'll take 12 months from when we start. And, I think to be safe, we'd basically be saying 2021 at this rate, that the process would be carrying on throughout 2021.
Yeah, my other question that you didn't answer is the council is going to have a final, when you have the manual, that's it? This going to have any others? Who's going to review this manual after that is done?
Well, I think that's where those opportunities for input come in. If there's public input, alders are as much a member of the public as anyone. They're, in fact, elected to represent the public, so you certainly would have opportunities to weigh in during those sorts of public opportunities. Plus, as a council, I think that you would have the ability to request updates. Where is it at in the process? And I would come and provide those updates to you. And, I don't have any objection to the council taking a look at the policy manual whatsoever. And in fact, ultimately, I think if we get the product that we're hoping to, we're just going to put it out on the website for everybody to see. That's what the ultimate goal would be.
Yeah, but yeah, I am asking because, you know, most of the plans that the city developed, they have a final approval from council, and I want to be sure that this one is one of those. You know, so when we revise anything in the staff manual, you know, I had to go through council, and, you know, I don't know, I am asking.
Sure, you know, and again, I have no objection to that. I think it could be a challenge for council members to evaluate a pursuit policy, again, to use that sort of an example. Clearly, the council can look at what's the philosophy of that pursuit manual policy and confirm that they're good with the policy philosophy, which, you know, our philosophy is we're only pursuing for violent felonies. You know, that is not something that we are going to be looking to change as a result of a policy revision. If anything, you know, and I'm not saying this would happen, is we would go to a more restrictive pursuit policy. And again, that could be a conversation or direction from the council as to what level of pursuit philosophy you have. Maybe the council would say they would like us to pursue for speeding violations. I don't know. I doubt that would happen. It wouldn't be something that I personally would recommend. But that certainly could be a direction that the city council gives. It would be a lawful direction. They would just have to be willing to accept the risk being presented to the public, the officers, and the city from a liability perspective. So there's really nothing to hide in there. I mean, there could be, you know, when you look at perhaps armed robbery response, you know, there could be sections that are, you know, redacted if there was tactics involved there, so that, you know, the general public wouldn't necessarily know what our response tactics are. But that's nothing. There's nothing in that manual that would be of a concern to me that the council couldn't see. You know, particularly from a philosophy standpoint.
Okay, any other question? Dorothy?
Thank you. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I had to come in late. I was in another meeting. Wanted to find out if, and I'd suggested these to Julia and spoke to the chief earlier today, whether there's been discussion already about the possibility of forming a ad hoc committee to help evaluate the progress of the manual. And also I wanted to suggest holding back the 5,000 and change community fund money to support a committee and find a different source of funding for that $5,000.
We haven't discussed that yet.
Can we?
Okay, so yes, we can.
Julia, just as a matter of process here.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Dorothy is not on this committee. She can weigh in at council.
Okay.
But not during this discussion.
Okay, Dorothy, can you ask those questions and we discuss this in council?
I can, but I wanted to also introduce it in finance.
Am I okay to respond to it, Pat?
Yeah, you can respond, Chief.
Okay. So what my hope would be at this point in time is that obviously the funding is approved as the resolution requests. That doesn't mean you couldn't potentially do an ad hoc committee, as you've mentioned, and use some measure of funding for that. I don't think it has to come from any particular account to do that sort of funding of an ad hoc committee, if that's the direction that the council would like to see pursued. I think there could be multiple layers or multiple options to what community looks like, or community input looks like on it, whether it's an ad hoc committee, whether it's an advisory committee, whether it's sharing the information via social media and media releases and allows people to review it and offer comment. There could be any combination of of any of those things, and other ideas out there as well. Obviously, I would want community input not to unnecessarily delay the implementation. That does not mean that, it shouldn't be allowed or shouldn't be afforded an opportunity. I would just hate for a process to drag on for 2 years instead of 1 year is where I would have some measure of concern. And again, I personally don't see why we would need to reapportion funding that's proposed for this project at this point in time for an ad hoc committee that has not even been created yet. I would see the opportunity, if it's an ad hoc committee that the city would like created and would like to provide per diem expenses and those sorts of things, that funding is identified once we begin the process, or at least have approval to begin the process, is how I would see it in an ideal world.
My other concern, that I have is the $17,000 annual subscription, okay? So that one is to keep an annual update is very expensive. I don't know, what else is coming with that subscription, Chief, that you have to pay annually? What else do you have?
So if I'm understanding your comment correctly, that's the ongoing cost is a
Yes.
concern. And what that buys us is not just the ongoing updates, that buys us continued access to the electronic platform to distribute the policies, to test for comprehension, and then it also buys us the training bulletins or training plans as well. So it's not just solely for those updates that would be going on. There are still other services with that annual subscription cost. And yes, $17,000 as an estimate is certainly not cheap, but when you look at the cost of a person and the time that could be involved in that and the potential for risk mitigation, I think that it's a low expense comparatively speaking.
Yes, I understand that, but our police department has been doing a great job without having the manual, you know what I mean? So, So my other question is, so what happened if you decided to, not to renew or pay the $17,000? What happened with the manual? The manual is still ours. We can, you know what I mean? What happened with that? We need to pay the $17,000 for how many years?
So it's my understanding that once the manual is revised, it is ours. Obviously, we would push it out onto the platform, but ultimately, the manual would be ours, is our understanding. Once we go, again, if this is approved, and I don't want to be presumptuous here, if this proposal is approved, we would look to enter into a contract. That contract would obviously be reviewed by us in the police department, but it would also be reviewed by the city attorney to ensure that it properly meets the city's needs and protects the city's interests. And much like most contracts, I assume that would also then, after the city attorney has a review of it and has accepted the contract and its terms, it would go either to the mayor and or the council for final approval. So again, that's something, it's one of the things that we'll be looking at as we, and confirm through the contract language and not solely rely based on what we're told.
Julia, if I could jump in for a matter of process here.
Yeah.
We are running out of time. We only have 15 minutes, and then we'll be off the air.
Why?
Because
It's not a meeting, is up till 7:30?
public safety's on at 7.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay. Okay, so I don't think that we are gonna be able to cover the rest. Because the idea of starting at 6 o'clock was to have a longer meeting, because it was something that the new ALDE requested, because sometimes they feel like we are rushing and they don't have the ability to ask for questions. So this is why we requested the meeting to start early. So now you're telling me that we have 1 hour no matter what, and that's it?
No, public safety, it was explained that public safety would start at 7 moving forward. And if you wanted more time for finance, you could start earlier than 6.
Okay, so,
Maybe we can discuss starting at 5:30 in the future.
Yeah.
I'm willing to do, I'm available and I'm willing to do that.
yeah, because this was the idea to start early, is to have more time for discussion.
And we've done that in the past. We've started as early as 5:30.
Okay, so, so we are ready to vote for the, and then any other comment, we can continue on council. Gabriela, do you have any question?
No more, I have some more things, but I'll talk in council.
Okay, so all those in favor of resolution R-143-20, say aye.
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 Nays, the motion carried. So next, because Cindy Jaggi is on the phone, so can we talk about, I need her resolution? Are you okay? So we can move that? Okay. So I need a motion to approve resolution R-152-20, approving the addendum to the Economic Development Partners LLC contract approved in resolution R-13-19.
Motion to approve.
Okay, so Cindy, hi, do you want to talk?
Hello, everyone. I wanted to just ask for your support. This addendum is really just a date change because the Fish Hatchery Road project was rebid. So my original contract went from 2019 to 2020. And with the rebidding of Fish Hatchery Road, we're just amending the dates of my contract from 2020 to 2021. None of the scope changes, and also none of the fees within that contract would change either.
Okay, any question for Cindy? No? Okay, Cindy, so all those in favor of approving resolution R-152-20, say aye.
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 Nays, the motion carried. Approved. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you all for your support. I appreciate it. Have a great evening.
You too.
Bye. Bye.
So next, I move, I need a motion to approve resolution R-147-20, a resolution accepting a public water main easement on the equestria property.
Motion to approve.
Okay, so Bill is here. I can see him. Bill, can you update us?
This was an easement that was required for the McKee Road water main construction. There was some utilities that were in the way, so we had to relocate the fire hydrant in the area. And the easement will locate that fire hydrant within there, and we negotiated the price based upon appraised values in those areas.
Was this approved in Public Works and Plan Commission?
Public Works, it was approved, and I believe Plan Commission was also.
Okay. And I know that there is a cost associated with that.
Yes. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, $1,060.
Correct.
Okay, but this is pretty standard when we request for an easement, isn't it?
Yes,
Okay,
Pretty inexpensive.
yes.
so, any question? All those in favor of resolution R-147-20, say aye.
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 Nays, motion carried. So next I am looking for a motion to approve resolution R-159-20, change of District 1 polling location. This is a direct referral.
Motion to approve.
Okay, so I want to make because we have 12 minutes, okay? So I don't know, because this is, if we are gonna have enough time to discuss this here, so we can start and then we can follow on council, okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, Julie, information Tracy is going to provide will answer a lot of the questions that at least this committee may have. So
Okay,
if Tracy could speak.
Okay, yes, okay, Tracy.
Hi there, good evening, everybody. So one of the aspects of moving a polling location would be to notify all the registered voters. The cost of that, based on the 2,885 registered voters in District 1, if we were to do a letter format, postage for that alone would be $1,442.50. That plus supplies and staff time to do that. If we did a postcard at 35 cents a postcard, you're looking at a postage rate of $1,009.75, plus the cost of the postcard stock and staff time to do that. So there is an incurred cost with that.
Yeah,
So I think that would have to have a budget amendment with that. The Chiefs and I did stop out at Redeemer Church this morning, and we did do a walkthrough with Casey, who was very accommodating to us. The dimensions of the room that were provided in your packet materials show that in the big atrium area, there's a stage there that kind of shortens the room up a little bit. The stage is not usable because of a tripping and falling hazard, so we wouldn't be able to utilize that portion of the room. And the way it's laid out with Badger books need to be connected via a router, and that router only has a distance of 300 feet, and it can't go through existing walls. So all of the election equipment needs to be in one location, which would be the larger room. So we would have to just utilize that one space. Let's see, the Chiefs table, the chief needs to be able to oversee all aspects of voting. And then we need to consider voter perception and transparency. This is best accomplished by having all of the election happening in one space, one room. Due to COVID and 6-foot spacing, the size of the room is important to be able to accommodate. And to do this with the high anticipated volume that we're expecting for this election, we did do some measurements. We're finding that we wouldn't have enough room for as many Badger books as we need for check-in, as well as processing absentees. And we wouldn't have enough room to accommodate all of the voting booths that are needed to, by law, be in a polling location based on the number of registered voters you have in that district. For future elections, when spacing is no longer required, this location would work quite well. And again, I said, Casey was very accommodating and very easy to work with. And the Chiefs, they were happy with the space. They thought it would work well, but due to the magnitude of this election and COVID and the 6-foot spacing, this actually is not going to work for that. Parking issues would need to be addressed as far as having enough spaces for voters to park. We would need to work with surrounding businesses to utilize their parking lots on election day for election workers and possible overflow for voters. Some of the front parking stalls would also be lost to accommodate for curbside voting. There's also a tripping hazard at the front of the entrance of the building, and I did take a photo of that, and I talked to Casey about that. This location does not have a backup generator in case of power failure like the Marketplace Fire Station does. And that's extremely important for elections, for all elections. And I would anticipate we would want some type of a contract or agreement that would need to be created to secure dates and times every year for this space, as well as wording issues for insurance reasons and, allow time for our city attorney to go over this contract. I know this is a big biking community. They don't have a bike rack available. That was one of the concerns that one of the chiefs had. Nor is there a sidewalk located on King James Way for people that would be walking to that polling location. So that was a concern one of the chiefs had. So
when you talk about the chief, which chief are you referring?
So we have 2 election inspector chiefs for the polling locations.
Oh, okay.
They're in charge of the day-to-day activities that go on at that polling location.
Okay.
They are also involved in the process.
Okay. Okay. So I regarding the cost and notification, I think it's not that covered under the money that the city received from for where it was, the city received some money to help with the election.
Yes, the CARES Act, we received a grant for about, I think it was $18,000. However, most of that money, if not all of it, is already spent just due to postage, envelopes, staff time, additional staff time needed for processing all the absentee ballot requests.
But I imagine that in your budget, you have some contingency for extra expenses that because we are talking about $1,000, you know? So I imagine that your budget can absorb the cost. We're not talking about $10,000, we're talking about $1,000. You know, I don't know. This is a question that
I agree, Julia. It's not a whole lot of money. It would require the budget amendment though, because we don't have contingencies within our individual department budget.
Well, okay. So if we need to look for a budget amendment, we can ask Misty to find for places where we can get this money.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other question?
I have a quick one. So the fact that there'll be an increase in absentee ballots, does that change the calculation in terms of the social distancing requirements? Since I assume we anticipate fewer people than the November 2016 election, given the increase in absentee requests, or has that been factored in with your analysis?
Regardless of how many people attend, we have to have 6-foot spacing, and that is between the workers and the voters. It's very hard to determine, you know, how many people are going to come. I have to plan for, you know, a very large turnout, and
physically distanced of the tables and the polling places. That's the distancing. It's not the distance between the people in line. Got it.
Yes, in line they have to maintain a 6-foot distance, and when they vote in the booths have to be 6 feet apart.
The distancing that we need to keep, it doesn't matter where we are. We have to, you know, if we go to another polling station, we have to do it anyway. So it's
correct.
You know. So my other question is, you talk about the generator. So you're telling me the polling station in one of the hotel has a generator?
The hotel does not. The hotel does not, but our fire stations do, and I believe our community center does.
So we have polling stations that they don't have generators.
Correct.
Okay. So, okay. So we are ready to vote because it's 7. I have more discussion to do about this, but I'm gonna do it at council.
Do we need to, I mean, is it required for us to, I don't know. I'm just like worried. I feel like I have more questions before I vote. Is it?
We can do it. We can vote and move to, let's do it in the council. I have plenty more questions, okay? So.
What, are we voting on it?
We'll just need a vote to defer to council.
No,
then?
I don't want to defer. I want to make a statement in finance, so.
Okay, all right.
I don't know how you feel, Gabriela, how you feel, Randy.
I'm sorry, what are we voting on? Are we voting on, since we're the finance, are we voting on the dollars or are we voting on?
No, we voted in changing the district for the polling one location.
Well, I'd like to have further discussion. So you want me to vote? I thought this was the finance committee. All right.
Yeah, I think.
Randy, we don't have time. This was we vote, or you want to, my question to you is, you want to vote or you want to defer this to council?
We
Go ahead, sorry.
Gabriella, you look like you have just as many questions as I have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm not prepared to vote. But like in terms of like a financial impact, like speaking directly from finance, I think that it seems like we can find the budget for postcards. I'm not that concerned about it. So from a pure finance perspective, I'm not that concerned about it. I think there are other considerations that Tracy has brought up that deserve a lot more conversation.
Exactly.
So I guess if we're thinking specifically in terms of a financial impact, I'm not as concerned about this resolution, but so I guess I don't have a problem pushing it forward. I guess I wish.
Okay, so I want to ask a question. All those in favor of resolution R-51-20 say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Okay, the motion carried. So we can discuss the rest in council, okay? So, so I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Nay, the motion is adjourned at 7 o'clock.